Hi, everyone. Everett Abrams, the Wizard of Wood, with episode 4 of our podcast. And today we're going to talk about the standard exterior wood restoration. Now, the exterior, anytime you're doing exterior wood, whether it's a log cabin, a deck, whatever it is, there are 4 steps in the standard. And people say, well, where do you come up with the standard? Well, standard is supposed to be broad, and this is going to be broad. It's not going to be in detail, although there will be some detail that we will discuss in regards to how we restore exterior wood. And the reason it's broad is because these are the steps that every time someone restores wood exterior using chemicals or products, water, whether it's self washing, hand washing with a garden hose, a pressure washer, wherever it is, these are the 4 steps that should be included. So even though we use dustless blasting and media blasting, these are not included in that. This would be for using water to restore the exterior wood. So we'll get into it first with step 1. And step 1 is to pre-wet the wood. Now, when we pre-wet wood, there's a lot of reasons for that. You can go on YouTube or a lot of videos you can find online where people are just spraying product, chemicals, bleach, whatever it is, directly onto the wood, dry wood. And a couple things can happen with that. One is it could actually mark up the wood. It could discolor the wood. It, it could do a lot of things to it that are going to have to be corrected later. Um, but the big thing is when you put products that are supposed to restore the wood on dry wood, they soak into the wood. The wood is very porous. And when wood is porous, what happens is it's like a sponge. So it's going to pull it into the wood. Now, if it pulls it into the wood, there's 2 things that can happen. One is it makes it harder to rinse it out later because it's deeper into the wood. It's going to take a lot more water to rinse it out. Secondly, the big thing is water is a barrier. And in wood restoration, we use water as a barrier often. When we restore or clean decks and log homes and so forth, we use water to spray landscaping. Uh, we use water on concrete, pavers, all kinds of stuff around what we're working on because water is a barrier, it protects. Now, in regards to the wood restoration, when we pre-wet wood, which is essential, it really does us a big favor because it's going to give us an optimal uh, final result. And the reason it does that is because whether we're cleaning and restoring the wood, okay, and we're getting rid of mold, mildew, algae, and the organic growth, where is that located on the wood, on the surface? If we're stripping coating off of the wood, where's the coating? Closer to the surface of the wood. So by pre-wetting the wood, we're actually keeping our products closer to the surface where they need to work, and they'll be more effective. So water does a lot of things, but the best is it really turns out to a better result because it keeps it closer to the surface. Now, again, you can look at videos, say, oh, wow, that's magic. It looks great. It'll look better if you pre-wet. You get a better result. It also prevents you from making staining in the wood, scarring it up, addressing any issues that you might have to worry about later. Uh, that's number 1. Number 2, if you're using a stripper is supposed to be wet to be active, so you want to put it on a wet surface. Uh, and that's essential as well. But when we're talking about pre-wetting wood, let me give you a real world story. So I'm teaching a class one day. I have somebody here who had learned a another method on how to uh, restore cedar shakes, actually. And he went out, took my class, came to take my class for his reasons. Don't need to go into it, but he wanted to get more education. He came to the class, and when he came to the class, I told him, if nothing else you take from the class, even the way you're doing it now, and your methodology, pre-wet the wood because he wasn't taught that. So I told him to pre-wet the wood and just see what happens. So 2 weeks later, I'm not thinking anything of it. He gives me a call and he tells me the story. And this is why I'm going to share this with you. He went out to clean a cedar shake roof, and he had done the same thing he'd been doing and been trained for whatever previous time, year two, whatever it was. And he completed the job. The second day, he was going to go back and do the house next door. On his way, or when he got up, and then on his way, it was raining. And he actually thought about canceling the job. And then he remembered taking my class, and what I said was about pre-wetting the wood. He said, well, the wood's already going to be wet. It's not pouring rain. If it's pouring rain and it's washing the product off, it's not going to be effective. It won't work. So what happens is he actually decided to go out to do the work. It was already rain, so it was wet. He wet it more than as he needed, and then he went about the same process. And this is why he called me to share the story with me that he had gone out and done the second job, and when he went back to look at both jobs, the job that was done on the second day, with everything being the same, with the exception of pre-wetting the wood on the second house looked better. It restored better, it looked better, it had more of a brightness to it, and the wood looked more restored. So you say, okay, well, how does that happen? It's because the wood it was pre-wet. So the product he used was able to work closer on the surface and really give it a beautiful, beautiful look to restore the wood. So pre-wetting is essential. It keeps you from causing damage or more work. It keeps your product closer to the surface where it's more effective, which makes it easier for you to get the work done. It's less to rinse out because the big thing we're going to get into in one moment is about rinsing. Is you want to be able to rinse all the chemicals out. You rinse, rinse, rinse again. And when you rinse, if there's a lot of chemical in the wood, you're going to spend more time and more water rinsing the wood out. So for all these reasons, pre-wetting wood is what we should all be doing. It is the standard, and it's step one. Now, step two is the use of chemicals or products. There's chemicals in a lot of the products we use. You can find some that are more environmentally friendly than others. That's not the point. Again, this is a broad standard. The point of this is whether it's a restoration product, whether it's a wood brightener, whether it's a wood stripper, whether it's a wood cleaner, whatever it is, we want to be using these products because this is why. These restore the wood, letting you use less pressure. When I said a garden hose earlier, anything we do with a pressure washer or a soft washing piece of equipment should be able to be done with a garden hose. You can restore a whole deck or a log cabin or wood-sided home fence with a garden hose. It would take more time, but you could do it because it's not about the pressure, which is step two. It's use the products and not the pressure. I often tell people that when they use the pressure of a pressure washer or use the equipment that way, then they can cause damage. And in some cases, to me, I feel like it's called vandalism, especially when that's the end result. With scars and rips into the wood and using pressure. Pressure does not restore wood. It does not clean. A pressure washer or soap washing piece of equipment should really be used as a giant rinsing tool. All it does is rinse it off. Now, how does it do that? Well, it only rinses off if you're going to use the right products. Cleaners, restorers, so forth, most of them are surfactants. They lift it up off the surface, whether it's the organic growth or the coating, and then it makes it easier to rinse off with. If you have 4 gallons a minute in a machine, or 5.5, or 8 gallons, whatever a minute you have, gallons per minute you have, that is used to rinse with, not to do the work. And that's key and that's essential. So if you want to restore the wood, it's going to come out much better if you use chemicals and products. And then along that line, and I've alluded to this already in some of the earlier podcasts, is there are good, better, and best methods when it comes to the products that you choose and what you're going to use. Also, environmentally friendly products or eco-friendly products, which I also mentioned as well. So the point is not getting into the debate of which products and anything like that at this point. It is, again, broad standard. And step two is to use products, not the pressure. Despite what you see on read on a Facebook group or see on a YouTube video where somebody's just taking the pressure of a pressure washer, that is really not the right way to do that. You should dial the pressure down. Any pressure used should be generally under 1,000, under 600 if you can, PSI. You don't want the pressure to do the work. The pressure is really just used to remove the grade wood fibers or the coating in a rinse method aided by whatever product you are using. That is step 2. Use products, not pressure, to restore wood. So that's step 2. It also keeps us in good shape with Western Red Cedar Lumber Association, the Forest Products Lab, any of the people that you can find things online about where they talk about don't use a pressure washer and the damage done by a pressure washer or those type of things, because we're not using the pressure from a pressure washer. We're actually using it just to rinse with. Can't emphasize it enough. All right, beat that horse to death, I guess. Let's go to step 3. Step 3 is rinse, rinse, and rinse again. So if you think you've rinsed enough, keep rinsing. If you still see suds or the chemical, the white coming out, you still need to keep rinsing. When you rinse, you're rinsing everything. So you're going to rinse any surroundings, whether it's landscape, the air conditioning condenser, your tarps, protection, whatever else, the house, siding, windows, anything like that. It's very, very important to do that. Rinsing is a key that most people will skip as far as in detail. They rinse it off and then, okay, that's good. You actually can create a salt if you don't rinse well between the brightener and the product you use. So an alkaline and acid. Most wood restoration involves a 2-step process where you use an alkaline and then an acid to neutralize it. And again, there's environmentally friendly ones like citric acid you could use if you're worried about being eco-friendly. So it's a 2-step process. So if you don't rinse real good, again, you could create a salt. What happens, you'll come back when wood's dry, you'll see the white haze on the wood, and then it either has to be addressed or redone to address that. So rinsing is key. Rinsing also, we just talked about, it helps to, when you put on the brightener, to neutralize that, the alkaline, making the surface more neutral and better for our coating. So the rinsing is meant to be done well. One of the things I was taught at the Forest Products Lab is no chemicals left on the wood. Rinse everything. Rinse, 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 and rinse again. So step 3 is rinse, rinse, and rinse again. Now, step 4 is, I guess if you were to drop one of these, it could be step 4. But step 4 is if you do all this work and you're trying to extend the life of the wood, you're now going to try to preserve that wood. And you're going to do that with a coating. And again, we're just talking about a standard, so it's broad. I'm not going to get into the codes. But whether you're using a sealer, a stain, or whatever, the key is to coat the wood. Why would you do all this and not coat it? This is what's going to extend the life of it and preserve the wood, which is the ultimate goal of restoring our exterior wood assets, our home, our deck, our fence, whatever it is. We want to extend that life of that and make it look good as well. How do we do that? By following these 4 steps. And preserving it is key. So we want to make sure we put on a good stain, good sealer, whatever it is, and then we want to try to find a way, if it's easier, to maintain it. Maintenance is always easier than reinventing the wheel each time. That's not the standard. The standard is really just to put the coating on, but make an informed decision for yourself of what type of coating when you do this. Now, I say there's exceptions to the rule, one you're going to drop. If you're going to drop one, it'd probably be this, and some people do that. And I'll tell you where I see it a lot is when someone goes to sell a home. And if they go to sell a home, they may just want the fence cleaned up. They may want the deck, fence, whatever it is, cleaned up, and they don't stain it. Let the new homeowner do that. If you're a contractor that's watching this and not a homeowner, this is something where you would kind of double dip in a way, because if the house gets sold, you should either sell that option to the homeowner or revisit the home, occasionally to see if the for sale sign's down. And if it is, knock on the door, introduce yourself, leave a card, do whatever, say, hey, clean the deck and the fence that you see that's been done now, and you can end up uh, picking up that customer as well. Now, if it's a repeat customer that you've already worked for, a lot of times what we do is we build in a transferable maintenance plan so that they can transfer that to the new homeowner. My company, myself and my company, we're actually in some instances working on the house becomes our customer, I guess, because we end up with I have 3 different homeowners for the same house on 2 occasions, and a lot of times we work for the next owner, whether deck, house, whatever it is. So you should keep maintaining all these things and keep staining them and preserving them if you're going to do all this work. And it just promotes other work as well, so it helps you out. But gotta digress a little bit. But I try to want to put a little real world to this sometimes. But if you were to drop one, like I say, you would drop the 4th one as a contractor, not a homeowner. You want to preserve the wood. But come back and revisit, because most of the time, the reason they bought the house is because they like the way it looked. They like the deck. They like the fence. And they'll want to preserve it. So good way to do that. So let's just recap, go back over the standard, and then I want to talk a little bit more about how that really applies broadly. So 1, we're going to pre-wet the wood. Pre-wetting the wood gives you that barrier. It also keeps everything close to the surface. Better result, better way to go. Don't put it on dry wood where it's going to absorb, harder to rinse out, can cause some damage. Chemicals left in wood will dry the wood out. And it can also discolor it a little bit too. That's, or take the color, the richness out of the wood, which we don't want to do. The second is to use products to either clean, restore, brighten, strip coatings and that kind of stuff from the wood. By using that, there's surfactants in most of these, and what they do is they lift it up off the surface based on a dwell time. Then you come by with a light rinse, and then rinse, rinse, and rinse again. And this will restore your wood to a beautiful look, optimal look, and your money. Step 3 is rinse, rinse, and rinse again. Make sure if you're going to use these products, they all have chemicals and whatever in the makeup of the products that need to be rinsed out. And rinse, rinse, and rinse again. Rinse all your surroundings, rinse everything. Rinse, rinse, and rinse. If you're using a wood brightener and you're using oxalic acid, which is called wood bleach, that is something that if it gets on windows, it can actually etch the glass. So rinsing your surrounding is very, very important. Rinse, rinse, rinse again. 4th, use a wood preservative, sealer, or stain to extend the life of the wood after you've done all this work. And you should have a very good end result. If we all did this as the standard for our wood in the wood industry, and I didn't make this up, I got this from being involved with the different organizations, associations, stuff that I've been with to create this standard. That a standard should be brought in. It should have all 4 of these items in it, where we're using the pre-wetting, the products, we're rinsing, and we're using a coating for the obviously to extend the life of the wood. So anyway, use all 4 of these. If everybody does that, we all have a good result and no issues. When we skip one, that's usually where we run into an issue. Either it's going to cause us to use more pressure or cause damage, do something that's going to cause more work. So that's the standard. Now, how does that apply? And why did you go over all this? Well, it's important because whether you're a homeowner or a contractor, if we're all doing this, and that's a standard for the industry, everything else is a shortcut. And the shortcuts usually take longer. So for example, let's just say someone took a pressure washer and didn't use any products at all, and just tried to use the pressure of the pressure washer. Well, think of Easy Off in an oven. If you put Easy Off in an oven cleaner, or use oven cleaner in an oven, and you put it on, it's just a wipe out. It comes right off. Okay. If you didn't, you'd have to scrub, and it would take a long time, and you have to cover every inch. But the oven cleaner makes it much easier. Now, apply that to exterior wood restoration. If we're just using the pressure washer, that's like using the elbow grease. You have to cover every square inch of wood with that pressure washer. And how do you do that evenly so that everything looks the same and not leave a mark? That's very hard. It takes a lot of experience actually to be able to use pressure to not leave a line or a scar on a wood surface, to be honest with you. So by using the products, what it does, it lifts it off the surface. And when you rinse, you really don't have to cover, like every square inch like you would with the pressure from the pressure washer. That rinse actually covers a large area, and it's rinsing everything off together because it's off the surface of the wood. You actually get done quicker, easier, and it looks better. So that's another reason why, let's follow the standard. Um, that makes it easier for anybody, homeowner or anybody, contractor. Let's do it, right? If it saves time, let's do it. If we get a better result, let's do it. This is what we should be doing. When we don't do that, it takes longer. You got to cover every square inch of the wood. It's going to take longer. If you don't use the chemicals, it's going to take longer because you might have lines, scars, something you're going to have to sand, fix later, that kind of stuff that you can avoid if you follow the standard. If we preserve the wood and we're putting a stain or sealer on there and we're maintaining that coating moving forward, that makes it easier than having to do this process every 2 or 3 years or more. 2 or 3 years would be maintenance. So if you go 3, 4, 5 years, depending on your coating, you're going to have to reinvent the wheel. If you use a solid stain, you'll get 5 years out of it, maybe a little more. But then again, you're going to have to reinvent the wheel. So these make it this standard and following these four rules of the standard actually help you moving forward now to keep your wood looking great all the time, easier to clean, maintain, and restore, and last longer. That's the standard. Hopefully, this podcast was helpful to everyone. Hopefully, it kind of breaks it down into a broad base of the 4 steps that we should all be taking. Try to simplify it, but also talk about why those 4 steps are key and essential. Now, we could add so many steps to this, but if everybody followed these 4 steps, we'd all be in good shape. I'm Everett Abrams, the Wizard of Wood. Hopefully, this was a helpful podcast to you. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to watch some of the other episodes.